Well, you're so funny today. Hey, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut here with Brian Galke. Just kidding, Galke.
Yeah. How you doing,
Good. I'm doing good. How you doing there in Texas, Dallas,
Man,
Texas?
it's beautiful weather the last few days. It's been like in the 70s. It's one of those you want to be outside before you get sunburned and before the humidity hits. So quite good.
When's the humidity tomorrow?
You probably so. That's why I'm, when that point kicks in with all this hair, I'm just nonstop like, hi, how's it going? You doing good? Okay, that's great.
Then you wipe off all that sweat, right? With your hand.
Yep, exactly.
That's why I wear a hat. It's just easier. It stays in the hat.
True.
All right. So Aces53 today, we're going to have our joker on, which is a person who has a unique ability to help us. And we've been talking about tonality today. Mm-hmm. And for rednecks like me, that means how your tone comes across. Right? Yep. Is that what we're talking about today?
Yeah. At least what we're talking about.
And at least I could say the words, because some of the words are just so tough for me.
Yeah, we know. Well, when you have, when you're third required, I just screwed that joke.
Yeah,
there went the joke. I was going to say, when you refer to the third grade as your senior year, that happens. But yeah.
Well, all right. Well, I'm going to bring it up. So here in California, I don't know how it's elsewhere, but 8th grade graduation is huge. It's like so big. And we this is the dumbest thing. First of all, kindergarten, I don't get it. But, then 6th grade, then junior high. It's like, give me a break. Well, I come to find out most of the people, half of the junior high is not going to make it through high school. So that's why it's so important to them to have that graduation.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
All
right. So enough about our issues in California. Let's bring in our guest today. We have Brian Grasso, great guy. Actually did a podcast with him yesterday and we had a good old time. So I'll bring him in and we'll get moving.
All right.
There we go. Hey, Brian.
You guys are fun. I thoroughly enjoyed sitting backstage and watching that. That was great.
Oh, yeah. We get to harass each other both on recording and off of recording. So it's fun.
Right. Yeah. And this is live. This is like, I'm live.
It's not Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, everywhere live.
Right.
I'm so nervous.
You seem like it. Yeah.
So a little bit about Brian, right? So we met him through another event that we all went to. So was the first one.
Are we getting paid to say the name yet?
No, that's why I just said an event. We can say it if we want to. I don't care either way. But yeah, we met at a speakeasy, right? And then you were actually back here in Dallas a month ago, but you guys had to leave earlier. But to get to know you guys, look, you're an intimidating looking guy when you come in. You're a pretty big dude. You're a power lifter. You got tattoos everywhere and everything else. And as I got to know you and your wife, you guys are just amazing people with really, really giving hearts. And it's one of those things of don't judge a book by its cover. And that's why I thought it's great to start off here with a little bit about you, right? So you're a founder, you're an author, a speaker, a trainer, a business and high performance consultant, but then you're also a competitive power lifter, right? I see your videos and everything. And you guys have a radio show. So I don't know when you guys sleep, but it's a pretty impressive life that you guys get in. And one of the things I liked about when you came to the events is you don't just come sit in a corner. You guys ask a lot of good questions, but even more importantly is when we were talking about how to help one of the girls who was on the hot seat get into Meet a Celebrity, you were willing to share your experiences of how you guys got into working with people that are A-list celebrities that we'll let you kind of talk about them a little bit later on. But it was really impressive that you guys were here, not just to take, but to give as much at the exact same time. So that being said,
what I was impressed about is I'm impressed about people who bring their wives or who are really connected with their wives, like I am. So my wife is my soulmate. And so that connection, I only like being around other people who treat their wives and husbands the same way, and that's important. And you guys are always on things together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Brian, send me your your picture. It's you and your wife.
Yes.
So, and that's unusual.
I married up. She makes me look better. I'm not going to lie. We all know.
Hey, we all marry up. We all marry up.
No, that's a huge part of it for us. Obviously, it's it's funny. We were quoting Joe Dirt just before recording started. So now I'm going to quote
Joe Dirte.
Dirte, exactly. I'm going to quote Rocky when he proposes to Adrian. He says, "You've got gaps, and I've got gaps, and together we fill gaps." And that's actually me and Carrie. She, she's immensely talented in varying parts of life that really are foreign to me, and I'm not particularly skilled at them naturally or innately. Whereas I have certain things that she doesn't, in terms of like long vision, and we recognized very early that in our case, I think in a lot of married couples cases, 1 + 1 = 2. For us, 1 + 1 typically equals more than that. Not because we're particularly amazing people, but together there's just something about her that I like being around, and happily vice versa.
So I'm curious if you're ever mad at her if you guys are passive aggressive with each other, do you just put snacks in the house? Because with you being a power lifter and her being a bodybuilder, I feel like that'd be the ultimate revenge, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. That's a great question, Brian. I almost am stymied on that one, but truth be told, we're both in season right now. Actually, I'm out of season. She's competing in LA in 6 weeks, and my next comp is until November. So we actually rotate our in seasons and out of seasons opposite on purpose for exactly that reason. So we're not both ravenous at the same time.
That's fantastic.
Come on, nothing else? No other questions?
Only because I was moving the banner around since he was there.
See, here's the thing. Brian loves his banners. He found StreamYard has banners. He's like, I got to use these banners.
That's right. Yeah. Well, because I think this one's relevant, right? And one of the things I liked in your bio when you sent it to us was not only are you a competitive powerlifter, but you said there you have intentions to win the world championship in 2027. Right. So you didn't say, I'm going to compete. But your bio says, I have the intention to win it. And I thought that was really impressive to include on that, because it's not just look at what I do, but watch me go.
Yeah, I appreciate that a great deal. And it connects really interestingly with the conversation Ed and I had yesterday on his podcast. And what does the concept of mindset really mean? And, you can break it down many ways, neurologically, spiritually, et cetera. But the word intention matters a great deal. What we always try to get people into states of reference in mind is what you intend and what you expect is a powerful equation. To understand the way the unconscious mind and the conscious brain work together, the dominant narrative in your unconscious mind becomes the expectations that your conscious brain seeks to enact in reality. So you're peppering this high-level expectation into your conscious brain, which means actions, habits, behaviors, choices, decisions all comport to that expectation. The reality is 92% of people don't achieve the goals they set. And the reason that's true is because they don't expect to achieve them. They hope to achieve them. They want to achieve them. That is linguistically a lot different than framing an expectation from the unconscious into the conscious. So I appreciate you noticed that.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now we'll give you the raw footage. You can cut that up and post it on your social media.
There you go.
You guys are awesome.
Well, no, it's about the whole thing. Reason we do these podcasts is to help really one person, right? And that's all we care about. We help more than that, but that's our goal. If we help one person understand the difference, I mean, we've been talking about tonality and how it's important, how you come across. Well, behind that is other stuff. And with you really think about the brain and everything relating to the brain and how it reacts to you and how you have to understand it in order to understand how we relate to it.
Yeah. Well, it's, Ed, you kind of primed me yesterday about this tonality topic, which I really love. And I love that you guys are bringing it to the forefront because it does matter. And one of the things I mentioned on your podcast yesterday, Ed, is that the brain has a remarkably small number of operations that it's responsible for every day, but those tasks are essential for us to live and to exist. But the brain also prioritizes in hierarchy form what is the most important of its priorities. And number one for every human being is safety and survival. So if we experience threat of any kind, and like the way you might perceive a threat versus the way your brain is perceiving threat are two different things. For example, change, which again, we talked about yesterday, a lot of people don't consciously realize they're afraid of change, but it is your brain's number one catalyzer of threat. So what you think you're afraid of and what your brain is afraid of are often two different things. But the reason I bring that up is, I'm growing very weary of the gurus in the space of be it mindset or personal development who talk about just show up as you and let the chips fall where they may, and people will take you as they want to, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is that, Brian mentioned that, I have a certain stature, I got tattoos everywhere. And I'm also of Italian-Irish heritage, which means that my voice, I talk loud naturally. Italian-Irish people, it's what we do. It was Carrie, my wife, who actually had to remind me over the years that my tonality mattered a great deal, in the hopes that what I had to say was being received by people. So, put that all together. And you mentioned you do these lives to help people. Well, if I'm bombastic and loud, without necessarily consciously knowing it, some of the members of your audience are going to absolutely turn me off in their brains because I threaten them. And that's fair and that's reasonable. But if I want my words to penetrate, to help people, then I have to measure my tonality accordingly. It's not just about showing up as you. It's about, what do you want from your experience? Do you want to help people? Because if you do, you have to measure your tonality properly.
So having two of you guys on here that have radio shows, right? Do you think you guys are hypersensitive to tonality compared to the rest of the people? Because if somebody's only listening on an audio front, that's how you have to get the emphasis out there. Like, we understand actors, we understand live videos like this, how your tonality kind of plays in. But when you're strictly radio auditory only, do you think that makes you hypersensitive or hyper aware of your tonality?
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts, Ed, because I'm interested in your answer too.
Yes, because the real thing is you have to emphasize certain words, emphasize certain things. But the most important thing is, and we talked about this before, is the smile, right? You can't, I never smile. Most people, my wife, like, this is Ed's happy, this is Ed's sad. But I do, but when I come across on the radio, I actually have a thing that says smile, or when I'm talking, smile, because it's a huge difference. When we were having fun in the beginning, it was a totally different vibe than we are now when we're serious about how we're talking. And that's how it is on radio, especially live radio. Now, we record our Real Estate Jerky show on Wednesdays, and we do it, and we have, it depends on which part of the person you are, whether you are, there's two types of people when it comes to radio show, who actually is doing can come up with ideas and do all this stuff and talk on the fly. And then there's the other person who's a supporter, and I can't think of the words for each one. And it's important to know where you lie in that, because that's what makes the show better. Because if you're one of them and you try to do a live show by yourself, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You need to have, then you got to have callers call in. Then how you get around that is you have callers call in, and then that's how, so that's important. So yes, tonality, I say it's important across everywhere, because I talk on the phone forever. So how do I connect with somebody on the phone? It's through my voice and then how do I hear what they're feeling is the stress level in their voice when on the other side. Did they hear what I said, or did they ignore, they're not getting it? I can hear the difference in the voices.
I love that answer. And I want to say that my experience in live radio is why I learned this, but in reality, it's from speaking at live events that I learned this. I've never enjoyed motivational speaking, not me as a speaker, but me as an audience member. I find it's very cheerleady and very rah. It creates a certain physiological response, which is what it's supposed to do. But I often think the salient points aren't heard or met, and they certainly aren't taken away to be used because you were too busy jumping up and down and pumping your fist and doing what you're supposed to do. So what I learned through doing live events myself is that there's an amazing power in pause. There's an amazing power in pause. And that amplifies even more, I feel, on live radio, because I think Ed, everything he said was brilliant. Like the note to remember to smile, because your inflection changes. But one of my favorite things to do is when I'm making an important point on live radio, I start to really slow down and leave room for a pause. And it just, it brings everybody into the moment, because how could it not?
It makes them lean forward.
That's right. Well said. Yeah.
What do you say? And one more thing. One more thing about this, because so I do a morning show with another, 5 days a week. And Monday I did it by myself. And I started going, I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? I've been doing this forever. And then you find out that, so when you have somebody else on, you pause automatically and they speak and you go back and forth. When you are by yourself and you're talking, and you're doing videos, you want to fill in that pause. You just need to stop, think, and keep going, because people don't know why you're stopping. They think it's important. That's what the next thing they're waiting for that next word because you paused.
Yeah. Well said. Really well said.
We got to keep him around, because he's sure getting my ego feeling so much better these days. So every time I talk to him,
he's going to set up. We won't even be recording it. Ed's like, oh, we need to have you back on again. It'll just be you and him.
Perfect. I'm down.
Yeah.
You guys are great.
And, we talk a lot about tonality, and sometimes people don't really get it. But a simple example is if I say, nice to meet you, or nice to meet you. I mean, you're saying the same words, but that's the example of tonality. Is some things you can make a statement with your tonality, other things it sounds like a question, or it doesn't sound confident. And that's why, especially in selling or teaching, coaching, you name it, you have to have that confidence that's there. Because if you sound timid, your audience picks up on that. The other person on the other end of the phone, your radio audience, everything picks up on the tone that you lead with. And that's why we talked about on Tuesday, slow down a little bit, right? Have a deeper voice when you talk. High-pitched voices, we worry that something's wrong because it's a stressor. And so it is interesting that it's not taught, other than like we learn in music. If you sing, you learn to sing in key, but we don't learn how to talk. We learn how to put words together, but we're not taught about tonality.
That's a great point. Gosh, I've said this like 5 times now, but something Ed and I talked about on this podcast yesterday.
And what podcast was that? Was that the Inner Edison podcast?
Oh yeah, it's a good one. Probably one of my favorites, to be honest. Yeah. We talked about the fact that it can be complex for people to understand, but not because anyone's inherently stupid, but it really defies what we think is true. So we don't actually see with our eyes, right? What we catch with our eyes is a myriad of light. Mm-hmm. And yet what's in front of me right now, what I'm able to see and decipher, is a product of what's there and the light that I'm receiving from it. But also my unconscious mind is filling in the blanks to create the scene that it thinks I'm supposed to be seeing, or it thinks I should be seeing. The same is true with our ears. It's a concept called phonomic restoration, which means just like our eyes, we don't hear exclusively with our ears. We catch sound waves, and we in a millisecond reproduce them into the coherence of what you just said, BG. But we also use our unconscious mind to fill in the gaps, to create everything from what you said and how you said it.
Right.
We kind of make sense of it that way. So with someone like me, and Brian, I'm just kind of mentioning again how you position me, a bit of a larger man, tattoos, etc. I have to really measure tonality well, because phonomic restoration implies that someone might not be hearing me
right
the way I want to be heard, because they are using their bias of what they see and expecting a certain thing. So it all just lends to the conversation of how much pausing, tonality, smiling in your words, they all really amount to delivering a message that you want received. So it's one of the things you said I loved is that it's not taught, and it really should be, because it's not common sense for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, it's like the show The Voice, right? They're all turned around and they hear the person, because if you see the person first and then the sound, you're like, that's not the right. But when they hear it only and then they turn around, that's a difference. And it's like years ago, before we had Facebook and everything. And if you were talking to somebody and never met them, and then you met them in person, you're like, that's not what I thought that person would be.
That's right.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then filters made it worse on pictures. The filters. I have met people on, I'm friends with them on Facebook, met them for the first time in real life after a year or two. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, wow, that's not what I thought you looked like. Not better, not worse, just not what I thought.
On the opposite side of that, Clubhouse, when I met people in Clubhouse, I felt like I knew them because you got to hear them and talk with them and converse with them. And so that was like more natural, like, oh, hey, it's fine. And they looked like what I thought they would, versus, to your point, if you go to Facebook where you're just reading and you create that own context, it's like reading a book and then seeing the character in the movie and you're like, doesn't quite fit right.
Yeah, well said. That's why
I just watch the movie. I never read the book. So.
I never read the book. Actually, I shouldn't laugh because I'm not really dissimilar on that level at all. But no, I think you raised a great point. That's why I'm a big fan of live streams and videos at large. It's much more of a real, honest reflection of who you are. There's no question, because you can hear me above anything else.
So we've mentioned it a few times of what you look like. So just so people can see, this is you, right? And that's what we're talking about.
A much better half.
Yes. Well, that's why you put her in front, right?
100% yes.
So anyway, that's what we're talking about. You're a tall guy. You're good. You're in shape. Big size dude. And then tattoos everywhere. So that's what you were talking about earlier about people may not be hearing what you're saying. That's why you have to over focus on it.
It's true. And I this was in my bio as well. and it's worthy of noting is I used to work as a professional bodyguard and a professional bouncer, and in that line or that career, like your tonality has to be a million times different. Like you have to bark. People have to know that there's a potential you could go the wrong direction really quickly. So you use tonality in that career opposite to what I do now, but in both cases, the tone at which I come at you is perhaps the most important part of you receiving the message that I'm trying to share.
Right. So you mentioned being a bodyguard, traveling the world, everything else. Who were some of the people that, are you allowed to say who you were bodyguards for?
Oh yeah, my contracts have long expired. The very last gig I did was on New Year's Eve, rolling from 2009 to 2010. It was Jay Sean. He did a concert in Chicago. So Carrie and our kids were up in Montreal, Canada, where we lived, but I went back to Chicago, where I used to live, for that final gig. And I remember texting Carrie right around 11:45 that night, because I had just gotten into a fight with somebody who tried to storm a stage, and I exited him from the facility, but he fought me the entire way. And here I'm thinking, I'm like, gosh, like I'm 33, I've got a wife and kids at home, and they're 1,000 miles away. I just texted Carrie, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Like, I'm so done with this job. But Jay Sean, I did. I never worked. I worked for a contracting company, so we got hired to venues and events. But I got Janet Jackson, Sylvester Stallone, the Rolling Stones. My least favorite. I shouldn't say this live. No, it's okay. It's you guys. Who was?
He says we have nobody watching. Is what you just said. Did you get that? Did you get that?
Well,
one day.
Who's that guy's name? Is it Trent Reznor? I'm sure that's his name.
Nine Inch Nails.
Nine Inch Nails. Yeah. I didn't like that guy. I didn't like that guy at all. He made it really hard for me to want to take care of him that night. But yeah, I had a blast with it. It was fun. I'm glad those years are over, though.
So going from, because you brought up the fact that you were a bouncer and you did all these things, how does one go from being a bouncer, right, and a power lifter, so you're focused on physicality, to wanting to get into the mental mindset of everything?
Well, there's a book out there. I'm just kidding.
I was like,
I was going to bring that up. That who else used to be a bouncer, and I thought Ed will get mad if I say his name.
No, I don't. No, I'm just saying we should start getting some royalty, some extra, affiliate marketing, from him, for as much as we talk about him, because Steve brought us all together. Absolutely. And that's, and I tell everybody, I had the interview I did after you on my podcast. I told her she needs to go to the November speakeasy, because what she's trying to do, she's a vet in the coaching realm, but she is a retired Marine. And when I first looked at her I'm like, retired Marine. I didn't know it was a female and I was like, holy shit, it's like your wife, right? It's like, holy shit. And I showed my wife, I go, does this look like a retired Marine? And she's like, no, it does not. But she's into huge coaching for for women and all this stuff. And so I'm like, you need to go to this. And I wanted to connect you guys.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, that's a lot of what Carrie does. Is she has a program called Unstoppable Women. So she does high-level coaching for very ambitious women. So that'd be a natural fit for those guys to meet. But, pursuant to your question, Brian, I've actually written posts and blogs about this before. It doesn't seem like it fits, but I think one of the things that makes me a halfway decent coach, I learned from being a bouncer and a bodyguard. I know it doesn't seem like it fits, but in reality, you learn how to read situations very quickly. As a
situational awareness, 100%. I used to be a bouncer as well. And one part is normally you're fighting drunk people, so you have a little bit of an advantage, but it was about paying attention to what may happen before it happened. And then if you have to walk somebody out, you can walk them out with respect, or you can walk them out and cause a bigger issue.
Yep.
And you learn how to handle drunk people, while you're watching out, and what are their friends going on, kind of keep eyes in the back of your head. So I do think it makes you hyper aware of what's going on all the time around you. And you have to think fast on your feet too, to adjust so that you're not laying on the ground.
No, it's true. I mean, I don't know if, this is equivalent for you guys, but I still need my back against a wall when I'm at a restaurant. I need to see everything. I don't.
My wife knows
behind me.
My wife, actually, and the time she tries to sit down, I go, "You gonna watch the door?" because I have to. It's just one of those things. I'm used to being, I was in the military. I know exactly what's going on around me at all times, no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's something that still happens. My whole family knows. They always save the chair for me against the wall because they know. But Brian, you're right. Situational awareness, de-escalation. These are really important assets for coaches. Communication. I mean, you guys obviously both know this as well. Maybe some of your listeners don't. You can talk your way out of a million abhorrent situations as a bodyguard or a bouncer if you're just smart with your tone and you're smart with de-escalation. And so these are assets I've used in my coaching practice. I see problems before they start. I'm very quick on my feet. And I know how to use tone to land the message that's necessary for the person I'm talking to. So that was all just grace under fire of I started my bouncing bodyguarding career at 17 years old. I've always been a big guy. And so, but 17 till about 33, I did that job full time and then part time as I aged.
So a curiosity.
Hold on, before you keep going. So what you just said is the same thing you need in sales, right? When you're talking to a prospect and you're trying to get them down the road that you need to become a client, it's the same. You use the same stuff all the time. Tonality, clarifying how you're trying to get to you, and it's how you're telling your story and how you're trying to control it all the way through. Same thing with what you guys were talking about with being a bodyguard. You don't want to get into that fight because you why do you want to get hurt? So you got to figure ways to get around it.
Well, and like you're saying, if somebody's coming at you and you have a calm tone and they're erratic, you can calm somebody else down with your tonality. And you can go the inverse of that. If you're trying to sell somebody, is you can inspire and excite someone just through your own excitement over the phone. A question I had for Brian was, because of the fact that you deal with a lot of youth as well. Yes, Ed, I threw up a banner. What's the difference in tonality when you're talking to an adult person that you're coaching versus when you're trying to inspire young kids and athletes?
Yeah, tonality plays a role, but not as much as linguistic gymnastics. And what I mean by that is, my kids are young-ish. They're my son's 20, my daughter's 18, and they have certain words. Like I'll say, "Hey guys, I won't be on my phone for the next hour. I'm in the gym, so if you text me, I won't get back to you." My daughter will respond with the word bet. Now, bet means okay or something like that. If I use a word like bet when I'm talking to a bunch of kids and I'm serious about it, they stop taking me seriously because they know I'm a 50-year-old man who's trying to be cool. But if I use it in the right way and I make a good joke with it, all of a sudden they think I'm hilarious. And now I've become the adult who is comfortable. I'm not judging them. I'm not making fun of them. I'm not chastising them. I'm not ridiculing them. I'm not doing anything other than trying to get on their level. And so tonality plays a role. Word selection plays perhaps an even bigger role.
Okay. On the inverse of that, you've mentioned in a few of the speakeasies a certain celebrity that you guys have a relationship with, right? Who travels the world, famous singer. How do you talk to celebrities any differently with tonality?
No, it's been my experience that, I mean, obviously it's a cliche to say they're real people. Of course they are. But, I've never been anything other than myself with people at that level. And I think more than bodyguards, people who've experienced the life of being an A-list celebrity, they're even more equipped than a bodyguard to sniff bullshit when they experience it. So presenting yourself as who you are, I think goes a long way in conversing with people in that, A-list celebrity category.
And I think the more you're around those type of people, the less those type of people influence who you are.
Totally.
Right.
100%.
Right. Because I mean, I lived in LA for a while, and you go to the bagel store and you're in line with every actor and actress in the world. Right. And you're like, hey, how's it going? It's not, it's not the same as somebody who's never seen an actress or actor in life. Right.
Agreed. Yeah.
And this popped in my head while you're talking, because I know you had her speak at your event. You know who was really good with tonality as well in her videos is Martha. Oh. Martha is fantastic when you're watching her videos because you can feel her excitement. You can tell when she wants to be serious. I mean, she just has a melodic way of delivering a message that is very impactful.
Yes, without question, one of my favorite humans on the planet. And you guys both know her well. So I'm saying this to you. You already know this, but perhaps some of your your viewers right now don't. As much as Martha uses tonality so incredibly well, when she's not on camera and you're just having a conversation, she sounds exactly the same.
Right. She's
and
being
that's
herself.
what I love about her. Yeah, she's just being herself, and she's inflecting when she's excited. But she's just so authentically in that. I think you used the word melodic, which that's exactly the way she speaks. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that word was going to come up. Authentic.
Melodic, yeah.
No, authentic.
Oh, authentic. Yeah, it's my favorite. Yeah. I wrote a blog post, how to be authentic and makes it. No, I didn't write that. I would never write that blog post.
No, it's amazing how many people use it a lot, though. And it's like, okay, there's other words that could be maybe better, and we talked about this yesterday about a lot of coaches and mindset coaches are using certain words like, I help you get unstuck. Well, what does that mean? Well, you're unstuck. It's like, you don't even know what it means. So and it's important to know words if you're going to use them. It's important to know tone if you're going to use it. And you should be who you are, period. Right? If you're an asshole, just be the asshole. You'll get a ton of people to like you.
No arguments.
Look how many people like Brian. I mean, it's just
which one? I mean, all Brian's are well liked.
Yeah, Brian Galke, not Brian Grasso.
Yeah. Hey, you're just jealous. We have more letters in our name. You calm down.
Yeah. Really?
Yep.
Only on the screen you do. Yeah. Only on the screen.
I was looking at our last names going, do I know? Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, no, actually you and I, we're both the same, right? Grasso and Galke. So
yeah.
But okay, so because today is about tonality, and we've kind of talked about how you go from dealing with children to you go to celebrities, which is a vast gap, right? One of the other things is you've spoken around the world. So I think you mentioned Prague, New Zealand, Ireland, Italy, Sweden. How do you have to adjust your presentation based on where you're going? Because some places being boisterous is kind of like aggressive. So do you work with somebody before you go there to find out what is the proper tone to have in a presentation there?
If I could go back in time, I probably would have, to be honest. I didn't have foresight for that. It never worked against me, best I can tell. I never got booed off a stage or anything along those lines. But here's one thing that I found very interesting about exactly what you're saying. Culturally, you're right. I mean, boisterous plays well over here. It doesn't play well over there. And that's absolutely true. So I'm from Canada originally. And I found this remarkable as I traveled around speaking in different countries. And it's speaking, Brian, to what you were just talking about there. When I was more boisterous on stage, people assumed I was American.
Oh, really?
And when I sat like, Dr. Wayne Dyer, when I sat on a stage in a chair and just talked for 60 minutes and I didn't really pitch above where I am right now, they knew I was Canadian. And I found that fascinating that that's the image the world has. If you're boisterous, you're American.
Yes.
If you're nice and quiet and relaxed, you're Canadian. I'm like, really? I don't know. I know a lot of Canadians who are boisterous as hell.
Yeah. I watched Kids in the Hall.
Brian just apologized the whole time. Sorry.
Yeah, you gotta do like with your sorry. That's the way it's. Yeah.
What's interesting about Prague is when we went there, we got called out. We went, 8-9 years ago. We got called out for being Americans, but it was for two reasons: sunglasses and for taking our coffee to go.
Really? Neither of those happen.
Yeah, because in a lot of Europe, you just sit, you drink your espresso real fast, and you don't take it to go, and then sunglasses. So like, you're Americans, huh? Yeah.
Apparently, first of all, Prague is a beautiful. That's maybe one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been in. That was absolutely gorgeous, that place. I was with the U.S. national figure skating team at the time. I was a performance coach, and I did a presentation there while we were there. We were also there for an international competition, and the head coach of the U.S. team at the time decided to be a really smart idea for her and me, and I think one or two other chaperones, to take the 15 young female athletes we had on Team USA at the time through a tour of downtown Prague with everybody wearing the USA tracksuits.
Oh, wow.
And I was like going, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
This is not a good idea. So it ended up being fine, freaky, because we've got this crowd of people converging on us happily just to take pictures. But it was momentarily there. I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I don't like that we're surrounded by 75 people right now.
So, Brian, you can be honest with us here. Were you part of the inspiration for Blades of Glory? Is that what you did prior?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't like admitting it. I co-wrote it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But that is a funny movie.
It is. Hey, who doesn't like comedies?
Right.
Especially that type of stuff. Joe
Right.
Dirt, all those types. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tommy Boy.
Tommy Boy's Black Sheep. I love
Black
it. That
Sheep,
whole
yeah.
genre is fantastic.
Well, we have the kids of that age that had to get stuck there watching it with us
Yes.
Right.
in the 90s.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Ed, what do you got?
I have nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
I tapped
All
you
right.
guys out.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean,
Well, no, we've been all over about what, how tonality works in every different facet, right? We've hit
Yes.
everything from selling to coaching to just in general talking to people, how to change certain situations by how you're talking to somebody, how you can, if someone wants to fight you, you can get rid of, not go in that fight.
Right.
Because I remember when I was in the Navy, I was stationed in San Diego, and I was in a mall, and I'm going down the escalator in the mall, and the chick's coming up, and she's smiling at me, and I said, "Hey," and then behind her, two steps, was a dude, and he's like got pissed off at me, and he starts following me out, and he's like, he wants to kick my ass because his girlfriend winked at me. It's like, okay, I said to him, first of all, I'm not going to get anything out of this. You're going to go home with her. I'm not. So, and right. So, but he did take a swing at me, knocked my hat off. And I said, if you couldn't hit me this close, you better get the hell out of here.
Yeah. Fair.
Right.
Fair
Because
comment.
it's like, why? If you couldn't hit me and you knocked my hat off, we have a problem. Or you have a problem. So you might want to go back in. And then he went back in. But I'm just saying is you never know the situation where you're going to run into where you have to be quick on your feet. Because don't get me wrong, I can be quick with my words and really piss somebody off in a second if that's what I want to do. I know how to hit certain things, but in turn, you can do the same thing, complete opposite also, which is what you really want to do.
Agreed. That's a great story.
Let's look at, since we have Brian on here, the most extreme example, right? When he's going to go power lift, if his coach is like, I really believe that you could lift the weight if you try properly, it is not going to inspire him, right? Versus if he's yelling and screaming at him, that tonality inspires. So it is interesting of all the different ways that our words and how we say them impact how we show up.
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
So true. It's different in every situation. I saw a thing on Facebook the other day where the guy was trying to lift and he tore every single muscle in his knees, his ACLs, right? He was doing a deadlift and, and then he came back 3 or 4 years later and he lifted. They told him he'd never walk again, never be able to power walk. And he was able to walk, do everything, and actually lifted more.
Yeah.
When he came back, I'm like, that's because he put in all those extra strength stuff in there.
Yeah, of course.
That
joint.
Of course. Well, it actually speaks to how much tonality in your own head matters. How you talk to yourself is every bit as important as the tonality you use externally. So that's a great evidence of that right there.
Absolutely. So, Brian, a question for you. We talked about a lot of things you've done, bodyguard to A-list celebrities, performance coach for Olympic athletes. You now coach coaches, like in terms of what, business as well as strength and conditioning.
Both. I actually don't dabble in coaching fitness at all. No.
Oh, you don't? Okay. That's my misunderstanding. What's the best way for people to find you?
It's a really bad answer, but Facebook. I know it's a bad answer. Everything in our business is being renovated right now, and I honestly couldn't tell you what the URLs are going to be. But on, Brian Grasso profile on Facebook. I'm a real guy who enjoys real conversation. If anyone ever has a question for me, just message me. I'm happy to dialogue. I don't have the velvet rope thing around me. So honestly, just come to my profile page and snoop around. And if you have any thoughts or questions, just drop me a DM. I'm happy to participate in the conversation.
So who's your, I'm going to go a little bit further. Who's your perfect client that you're looking for?
Great question. It's evolved over the years, but I'd say my best client right now, the person I'm able to have the biggest impact on, is, to paraphrase from you, Ed, somebody who actually is stuck, but they know they're stuck. Right? There's a lot of people who are delusional. They think it's circumstantial. They think it's situational. In reality, it's the half square foot of real estate above their neck that's the problem. They just don't know that. So my best client is somebody who is stuck, but they know they're stuck. That's somebody I can work with very, very easily, because all the things we do, mindset oriented or EQ oriented, it has to have a willing audience. And if you know you're stuck and you know you're the reason you're stuck, that's an easy person for me to work with.
Now, what about if they want to? So they enjoyed listening to you talk today. Where else can they find you in terms of seeing you perform, talk, anything like that? Like is all basically
You have
on
a website?
Yeah, you know, the best place to see what Carrie and I are up to now is called eligroup.org. That's ELI group.org. So we're a lot of the reason we don't have we're revamping our web presence right now is that our business is going through a very nice pivot where we're donating most of our energy and time into this youth-based programming that we got very excited about a few years ago, and we weren't expecting it to ramp up the way it has. We're working contractually now with school boards and school systems all around the country. Our app for adolescents to teach them mindset and EQ comes out in Q3. And a lot of what we do in LA Group is also with military personnel, both retired and active duty folks. So yeah, that's it right there. That's a great hub that shows you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and where we're going to be in terms of future events and speaking engagements.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Anything else, Brian? Either Brian? All right.
The Brians.
I'm not used to
you feel teamed
the
up on?
BGs. Not feeling like BGs. Staying alive. Anyway,
I was wondering if someone was going to do
Mr.
that. Perfect. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know, Brian, thank you so much for being on the show today.
You're
really
welcome.
Appreciate it. The other Brian.
Now, you guys are great, man. Ed, I was talking to you yesterday, and I made the mention that I'll make it again now. My least favorite podcast or live show to do is when the host sends me questions 2 weeks in advance and says, these are the 20 questions I'm going to ask you. And in my head, I'm like, that's not going to be a conversation, though. That's just ridiculous. You guys are fun. So thank you guys for inviting me. This was a blast. I really enjoy both of you, and I think what you're doing is fantastic.
Absolutely. We'll have a follow-up one on mindset. Once we're getting into the practical skills now, right? Like what do you need to do? Research, prospecting. Now we're into cold calling and tonality. But once we start getting into more of the mindset stuff, we'd love to have you back on.
It'd be my pleasure. Yeah, you might be even better with Carrie. She's way smarter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She's better looking anyway.
Way better looking. Yeah.
Can you let us know that she watches all the same movies so we can quote Joe Dirt and everything else, right?
I'll tutorialize her. I promise.
Yeah.
I'll have you ready for it all.
Get her up to speed.
Yeah. All right. This weekend, here's our movies we're watching. Boom, boom.
That's
boom.
right. It's like a book club, but it's just
Joe
comedies.
Dirt, top of the list by far.
Yeah. Joe Dirt K. Church it up, buddy.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. So thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah.
We had a great time. Thank you for showing up. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for putting up with Ed for 2 days in a row. I mean, that takes a lot. That says a lot about your character.
No, I actually think people are surprised how I do podcasts, because not everybody does a podcast the way that they should do a podcast.
I agree.
Asking the right questions, letting it flow normally like a conversation. But still controlling the way it goes, but still having a good conversation. And Brian Galke, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. Brian Grasso, thank you for being our guest. And like we said, we're going to have one of you back, Carrie or you, for the mindset part, because we talked about this yesterday, how the mindset, the further along you get, the more your mind messes with you, right? It's like when golfing, when you first started, 90% physical, 10% mental. Then once you got on the other side, it's complete opposite, 90% mental, 10% physical.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the issue that you have in sales when you're getting good at stuff, your mind gets in the way. And so it's important to do that. So we'll get that going in a couple weeks.
Awesome. That's great, guys. Awesome.
All right. And everybody else who's been watching, we really appreciate it. If you like what we do here, just subscribe, share, let other people know. And we're just trying to help you. Brian, thank you. And Brian, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.